Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 15, Text 1. King Prithu's appearance and coronation. Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam mathya manabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata. Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata. Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata.
Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata.
Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata.
Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata.
Maitreya Uvacha. Atatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata.
Atyatasya punarviprair. Aputrasya mahipate. Bahubhyam matyamanabhyam. Mitunam samapadyata.
Word for word. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya continued to speak. Atha. Thus. Tasya. His. Punaha. Again. Vipraihi. By the Brahmanas. Aputrasya,
Aputrasya,
without a son,
without a son,
Mahipate,
Mahipate,
of the king,
of the king,
Bahubhyam,
Bahubhyam,
from the arms,
from the arms,
Mathyamanabhyam,
Matyamanabhyam,
being churned,
being churned,
Mitunam,
Mitunam,
a couple,
a couple,
Samapadyata,
Samapadyata,
took birth.
took the birth.
Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, thus the Brahmanas and the great sages again churned 2 arms of the king Vena's body. As a result, a male and female couple came out of his arms. We'll go to the next text because it's from the purport. Text 2. Tad drishtva mitunam jatam rishayo brahmavadinaha ujuhu paramasantushta vaditva bhagavat kalam. The great sages were highly learned in Vedic knowledge. When they saw the male and female born of the arms of Vena's body, they were very pleased, for they could understand that the couple was an expansion of the plenary portion of Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace. The method adopted by these great sages and scholars, who were learned in Vedic knowledge, was perfect. They removed all the reactions of King Vena's sinful activities by seeing that King Vena first gave birth to Bahuka, described in the previous chapter. After King Vena's body was thus purified, a male and female came out of it, and the great sages could understand that this was an expansion of Lord Vishnu. This expansion, of course, was not Vishnu Tattva, but a specifically empowered expansion of the Lord known as Avesha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Indradumna Swaminiti Namine Namo Prabhupada Pridasaya Jagannath Yadananda Murtaye Bhakta Sukena Krishna Kirtanena Narasimhena Rakshitaya Namaha Panchakapatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhuryevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Gaite Girim Yakripatamam Vande Shri Gurum Ginatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram. So today I will try to speak a little bit on the topics that we read about today. The Prabhupada hasn't given much in these 2 verses, simply because they're very simply descriptive. But one thing that stood out to me the first time I read it, maybe because of my impurities and materialistic intelligence, was immediately, how did they get people out of dead bodies? Who else thought like this? Right? It's not something immediately that we just, oh yeah, that makes sense. Right? It's a little bit beyond our understanding how the Brahmanas can do such a thing. I remember first time I heard this story many years ago, I was very much puzzled. And my childish mind was asking so many questions. And how can this, how do you, how, or did they put it in a pot? And yeah, it was very confusing for me. But through explanations, I began to understand that these Brahmanas, they're capable of doing so much more. And their power is nothing compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So following this track, I thought it would be a great help for us and something we could understand in this chapter or in this purport, and not only in this purport, but many to come. How believing is not just done by blindly believing is not what we advertise, or is not what we should do. Just because it says so, and therefore it is such. Believing should be done through experience and, sorry, 1 second, let me get the exact word right that Prabhupada uses. Blind faith is not the goal of devotion to Krishna. True faith is developed through reason, understanding, and experience. Yeah, so those 3 things are what make up faith. We have reason, understanding, chapter is entitled Knowledge of Krishna's Energies. Prabhupada begins to describe a certain story. Many of you might be familiar with the story of the cobbler and the brahmana. Who has heard the story before? There's a cobbler and the brahmana, right? It's quite a common story, and Prabhupada refers to it quite often. So the story goes that Narada Muni, we all know who Narada Muni is, the transcendental spaceman, preacher of the Lord, right? So he was traveling around and chanting the Lord's name, and he happened to come across a brahmana. And this brahmana was very learned, very scholarly, very powerful and influential in society. And he was performing many sacrifices and chanting many mantras. And when he saw Narada Muni, he made a big show of getting up, paying obeisances, receiving Narada Muni in the proper way. And he asked Narada Muni, my dear sage, next time you go to the Lord in Vaikuntha, can you ask him something for me? And so Narada Muni, of course, said, yes, whatever you would like, I can ask him. So he said, please ask him when I will go to Vaikuntha. When will I leave this world and go back to him? So Narada Muni happily agreed, and he continued on his sankirtan, chanting and dancing. And he came across a cobbler. A cobbler is something very common in India. Here we don't see them so much. But they basically sit on the side of the road and they fix shoes and bags, anything made of leather. Right? And of course it's a very dirty job, but they very happily do it. And in India even today you go to them and they do amazing jobs. Like anything you take to them they can fix, and they figure out some way to do it. They're very humble, very happy, and just very, how would I say, simple but very sincere people. Every time I had an interaction with one was always very nice. I don't know why. But so this cobbler, right, he saw Narada Muni and he was very pleased to see him. He gave him a place to sit next to him. And they were talking, and so the cobbler very humbly asked Narada Muni, he said, my dear sage, can you do a small favor for me? When you go to the Lord next time, can you ask him to please let me know when will I be able to see him? When will I be able to go back to him, to Vaikuntha? And so Narada Muni was very happy to do this, and so he continued on his way, and eventually he made his way back to Vaikuntha. And so while he was there, he told the Lord of what happened. He met the brahmana and he met the cobbler, and they're both asking when they will come back to you, when they will come back to Vaikuntha. And so the Lord said about the cobbler, as soon as he leaves this world, as soon as he passes away, he'll come straight back to me. And Narada said, and what about the brahmana? And the Lord said that the brahmana will take many, many more lifetimes until he becomes ready to come back to Vaikuntha. And so the Lord, Narada was puzzled. He said, this brahmana is a devotee, he's worshipping you day and night and performing so many rituals. And this cobbler, all he does is fix shoes. And so and Lord Narayan said, you will get your answer when you go back to them and tell them this. So Narayan said, when you go back to them, tell them that when you came to see me, I was trying to put an elephant through the eye of a needle. Everyone knows what an eye of a needle is, right? To try to get a tiny thread through it is like the most frustrating thing you could ever do. For me, it's the worst part of stitching. It's like, stitching is not a problem, but to get the thread through it's just, right? It infuriates you, right? So he was trying to get an elephant through the eye of a needle. So Narada was a little puzzled, but he accepted the Lord's word and he went back to this world. He came back. And he went to the brahmana, and the brahmana, of course, was happy to see him. And he said, Narada, what did the Lord say? When will I come back to Vaikuntha? And Narada said, my dear brahmana, the Lord said that unfortunately it will take you many, many more lifetimes until you're ready to come back to Vaikuntha. And so the brahmana immediately became disturbed, and he said, I don't believe that you actually went to Vaikuntha. If you actually went to Vaikuntha, then tell me, what was the Lord doing when you saw him? And so Narada said, my dear brahmana, the Lord was trying to put an elephant through the eye of a needle. And so the brahmana immediately shouted, you're a nonsense rascal, you didn't go to see him. How could anyone put the elephant through an eye of a needle? Why would he do such a thing? It's absolutely terrible and wrong that you're lying in such a way, and blasphemed Narada and left. And so Narada was really puzzled, but he accepted whatever happened, and so he continued walking, and he went to the cobbler. When the cobbler saw him, he jumped in joy, embraced Narada, sat him down, and together they started talking about Krishna's pastimes. And the first thing the cobbler asked was, "What was my Lord doing when you saw him?" The cobbler didn't ask, "What did the Lord say? When will I come?" No, he wanted to know about the Lord first. So he said, "My dear Narada, what was the Lord doing?" And so Narada said that my Lord was trying to put an elephant through the eye of a needle. And so the cobbler jumped in joy and said, "What a beautiful thing the Lord is doing. So wonderful. How amazing. The Lord can really do everything. He is so cool. He is so amazing." Right? And so Narada was a little bit puzzled. And he said, "You believe that the Lord is trying to put an elephant through the eye of a needle?" And he said, "Of course. Why not?" He said, "I'm sitting under this banyan tree. Look how big it is." And I don't know if you've ever seen... I don't know if you've ever seen a banyan tree, but they're enormous. There's a banyan tree in Kolkata. Recently they cut it down, but it stretches 1 kilometer in breadth. 1 kilometer. Because banyan trees, when their branches go out, they drop these vines. And as soon as the vine makes contact with the ground, it becomes another trunk. And so it spreads from there, and another one, and another one. So this tree was 1 kilometer. We used to go see it quite often. It was a very beautiful place. This banyan tree is like a whole village underneath this banyan tree. So this cobbler was sitting underneath not that big banyan tree, but a big banyan tree. And he said, this banyan tree, all day it sheds these fruits. These small little fruits. And inside these fruits, there's many little seeds, banyan seeds. And from each one of these banyan seeds can create another such tree. So if the Lord can fit such big banyan trees into these tiny seeds that can create millions of other banyan trees, then why can't he put this simple elephant through the eye of a needle? If he can do something so amazing, why can't he do something so simple? Right? So this is what we mean by reasoning. When we see the creation of the Lord and we see everything he has already done and is non-stop doing, right? How this world works in such a perfect way. And the other day I was having a conversation with Hendrik, and if he was saying that even if something was even a little bit off, right? If the sun was a little bit hotter or a little bit closer, or if the ocean was a little bit deeper, or whatever it was, this whole world would go to, be destroyed. And this world has been functioning for how many billions of years in its perfect way? Right now we're flipping out about a little bit of climate change, but we're talking about relative history. If you're talking about eternity or, billions of years, it's just over 100 years, things are changing, and then they'll change again. This universe is always changing. Right? So if you can see the reason that the Lord's creation is perfect and what he's doing every day is much more amazing, so this little thing of churning to a couple out of a body that the Brahmanas did really isn't that amazing anymore. Right? So this is what Prabhupada is speaking about, that faith or belief is not just blind. It's through reasoning and through experience. So when we enter into this Krishna conscious movement and we start surrendering to the Lord and worshiping, right? We're entering through reason. We're thinking that this philosophy makes sense. I am not happy in this material world. Something is wrong. There is a God because I can see through this creation that this doesn't happen by chance. The scientists tell me this happened by chance, but I don't believe it. It's not working like that. Everything happens in such a perfect way. It can't just be by chance. Right? Consciousness cannot be a result of chemical reaction. So we believe there's a God, and so we begin to start practicing and giving Krishna consciousness a chance. And what do we have experienced? That I've met someone who's happy. I've met someone who has belief and who believes in this system and who follows it. And he has gotten some result. So that is the beginning of your experience. Yeah? And then you decide, okay, I want to practice. So you begin to have a little bit of faith. And through practice, what happens? You begin to have your own experiences. That day when you're chanting and you're really happy and you're really focused and all your problems seem to melt away, gives a little bit more faith. Then the next day, I'm not so happy, then maybe my faith is not so strong. It didn't work today, I was chanting and I still had so many problems. Right? So it's a constant up and down, but that faith, by gradual practice, then that becomes more and more real for you. And of course, we have so many other people that we see and talk to, so many other stories that we hear about that gives us more faith, more things that we can relate to. And so it's a gradual process, but it's not blind believing. This philosophy, this Krishna conscious movement, it's not blind belief. It's through reason, experience, right? And there's one more, reason, experience, and understanding. Because things start making sense to you. Yeah? So this pastime of King Vena, when we take it into relativity of everything else that the Lord is doing, it really isn't that far out. Right? And of course, in this pastime, we also see how the Brahmanas really understood that they themselves were not doing it. In this verse alone, it says that the Brahmanas, seeing this couple that it came out of the body, it wasn't that they made the couple come out. They were pleased to see the couple that came out because they simply followed the process that the Lord gave, and this is the result that the Lord provided for them. They did this ceremony or ritual, whatever you want to call it, in order to get a new person who can take care of the kingdom because King Vena was unqualified. And the Lord provided them with this result. And you'll see in the future verses it becomes even more clear that these Brahmanas were simply playing their part, and they understood that they are not the doers. That the Lord has His plan and they're simply enacting their small little role within it. Yeah? These Brahmanas weren't the ones doing it. Because otherwise it comes into question that if these Brahmanas are so powerful, why didn't they in the first place not let King Vena become king? Why didn't they rule the earth? Why didn't they just, clip their fingers and everything gets fixed? Because that wasn't their duty. They understood the plan of the Lord, that this had to happen for a reason. For this pastime to happen, for us to learn from this pastime. Yeah, sometimes the Lord makes these things happen in order to bring out certain qualities in society, to bring out certain activities that will bring more people closer to Him. Because what is the purpose of this world? For us to remember our intrinsic nature of being His servants. So if everything ran perfectly in this world, we wouldn't be very much inspired to do so. And that cannot happen in this world because we're separated from Him. We cannot be eternally happy until we are reunited with our eternal relationship with Him. Yeah? Another pastime that Prabhupada brings out in this connection is the idea of deity worship. How sometimes it's difficult for us to understand how the Lord Himself can be present everywhere in this world. And so what is the difference? Right? How can we actually understand that the Lord is there in His Vigrahamurti, in His deity work, in His deity form? And for that we have to understand that the Lord is eager to interact with all His devotees. And so when a devotee is sincere and really loves the Lord and wants to interact with the Lord in certain ways, then He becomes manifest in a way in which the devotee can relate to Him, can interact with Him. It's out of the love that the Lord comes in this form in which we can reciprocate and interact with Him. Yeah, so there's so many pastimes in which this is described. Prabhupada brings out the point of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj saw the Lord everywhere, and because he saw the Lord in the pillar, the Lord actually was there. Right? It's by the power of Prahlad Maharaj that he saw the Lord there, and his love brought the Lord into that pillar. The Lord is everywhere, but it's the devotee's desire to see Him, and it's the devotee's love to serve Him that makes the Lord physically, or let's say, manifest Himself in the deity form. And that's why there's so many deities all over India, all over the world, that actually interact with their devotees because of the love that they have. And when you see a deity in which there are devotees that are serving Him with love, you see that it's different. You see that the Lord is actually there. You see that the Lord is there. He's ready to interact with you. You are just not ready to interact with Him. Right? You see Nrsingadev here, you see deities in Vrindavan, you see deities in Mayapur, you see that there's something different, and you see that the love in which the devotees approach Him is so real. Just like if a son is running to his mom because he believes that the mom is going to catch him, he's there. It's so real, the love that he has. And so when you see that love, that interaction, it becomes much more enlivening, it becomes much more there for you. So Prabhupada brings up the pastime of Sakshi Gopal. Yeah, many of us, have you heard the pastime of Sakshi Gopal? Sakshi Gopal? Too. Okay, of course, Ramananda. So Sakshi Gopal is a pastime, very beautiful pastime, in which this young Brahmin boy, he accompanied an elderly Brahmin from South India coming to Vrindavan. They would do this pilgrimage. Yeah? And so this young Brahmin boy, of course, being stronger and more healthy, had to assist the older Brahmin in everything, in walking. Of course, there was no trains or planes at that time. Carrying the belongings, preparing the food, the places they would stay, protecting from who knows what. And so when they finally got to Vrindavan, the elderly Brahmin was so grateful to the young Brahmin that in front of the deity of Gopal, who was there, that time his name was just Gopal, he promised the younger Brahmin that you have become like a son to me, and so I want you to marry my daughter and become part of my family out of gratitude. Right? And so the young Brahmin boy said, my dear Brahmin, don't say this in front of the Lord because you're making a promise you won't be able to keep. Your family will never agree to this union because I am poor. I'm, not from such an elevated Brahmin family as yourself. And so don't say something in front of the Lord that you won't be able to do. He said, no, I promise you this will happen. So he said this in front of the Lord. And so when they went back, the elder Brahmin went back to his home and he told his younger son that, I promised your sister to this Brahmin. And the younger son said, no way. This Brahmin is poor. He's not going to be able to take care of her. He's from a lower family. How can we do this? It'll be shame on society. And he told his wife, and the wife was also, absolutely no, this is not possible. And so the older Brahmin was a little bit perplexed what to do. And so the young Brahmin, wanting to save the elder Brahmin, Prabhupada brings up this point that I never heard before, that the young Brahmin, he wasn't greedy for the wife. He didn't want the girl. He didn't want to just, force the girl to marry him. But he didn't want the elder Brahmin to enter into, bad karma because he promised something in front of the Lord. If he doesn't make the elder Brahmin keep his word, that means that the elder Brahmin made a promise in front of the Lord that he's breaking. And so out of compassion, the younger Brahmin went to the elder Brahmin and said, my dear Brahmin, you promised something. You have to fulfill it. You said in front of the Lord. And so the son of the Brahmin, or the elder Brahmin, the brother of the girl, he was a little bit of an atheist, and he said that, no, this didn't happen. You have no witness. You have no proof. He said, of course I have proof. The Lord was there. Gopal was there. He heard everything. And so the brother said, okay, so if he's your witness, then you have to bring your witness here so he can testify that my father said this. So the young Brahmin said, of course. So he traveled all the way back to Vrindavan and went in front of Gopal and said, my dear Lord, this Brahmin made a promise in front of you, but now because of family pressure, he's being forced to do something very sinful and break his promise to you. Please save him. And so Gopal, being so touched, he said, my dear Brahmin, you're talking to me as if I'm able to walk with you all the way back to South India. I'm a statue, I'm a murti, how is this going to happen? And so the young Brahmin boy said, you're talking, that means you can walk. Don't try to play games. If you can talk, you can walk. So Krishna said, okay, fine. So he said, I will follow you, and you will know that I'm behind you by hearing my ankle bells. You'll hear the ankle bells on my feet, and then that way you'll know that I'm following you. So they began their journey, and the Brahmana was very happy walking, and hearing Krishna's ankle bells behind him. And when finally he almost made it back home, they entered into an area that was very muddy, and he stopped hearing the Lord's ankle bells. And he was worried, so he quickly turned around, and there Krishna was. His pastime, his murti form was there in the mud. But the mud was above his ankles, so you couldn't hear the ankle bells. But then the Lord wasn't moving anymore. He was in his murti form. But he was close enough to the village that the Brahmin boy ran to the village and said, look, he came to bear witness to the promise that you made. Come and see. So they came, they understood their mistake, and they made a beautiful temple for the Lord there. And from that day on, the Lord is known as Sakshi Gopal. Sakshi means the witness. The witness. So the witness Gopal. And till this day, many people go there when they're making promises or when they want to commit, do some some spiritual activity, they go and they tell Gopal, my dear Lord, I promise that I'll chant this many rounds, or I'll do this, I'll do that. And in that way, he's testifying to all these promises that these devotees do, and when you complete it, you get extra benefit, etc. Right? So this is a pastime Prabhupada brings out to show two things. One is that the Lord reciprocates with the devotees, and therefore he comes into this murti form in which we can interact with him. And also to the level that we see the Lord as the Lord himself and not as a deity or as a statue, as a rock, as wood. To that degree, he is that person. So it's our impurities that stop us from being able to interact with him, that stop us from being able to actually surrender to him. It's not that he is anything less than. Yeah, sometimes we get this misunderstanding that no, I need to go to a special deity, I need to go to a special place in order to, see the Lord. But what makes that place special? It's the interaction of the devotees with the Lord there. And that is something correct. We go to the Dham, to Vrindavan, we go take pilgrimage so that we can see devotees interacting with the Lord and see their love and their devotion that will inspire us to have better devotion for our Lord. It's not that Krishna there is any different than Krishna here. Does that make sense? Right? It's simply to enliven us and give us more devotion, more faith in the Lord that we do these pilgrimages and these parikrams. Like recently I went to Govindaji, and he is amazingly beautiful. He is beyond beautiful. But what was the most amazing to me was when you go there and you see thousands of people from all over the world coming to see him, they all come with one reason. They don't go there to socialize. They don't go there and start chit-chatting with each other. How are you? What are you doing today? They don't talk. They go there to see him and to love him. That's it. And it's such a beautiful relationship they have with him. They don't care that we're Westerners. Everywhere else you go in India, everybody's staring at you. In Govindaji temple, everyone's looking at Govindaji. And they see that you're trying to see Govindaji and they'll bring you closer. Can you see? Can you see? Can you make sure you see? And they'll push you forward. Right? So their love for Krishna is what you go there to see. You see this amazing, and you see that Krishna is real, that Krishna has interaction with his devotees, and they love him. And so then you become inspired. How come I don't have that love? How come I don't have that determination? They're normal people, rickshawalas, right? They're cobblers, they're people who work in the market, but they'll go and see Govindaji every day. Once a day, they'll go and see him. For a second, just for a minute, they'll go take darshan, walk around, and go back. But all day, Govindaji temple is full. All day. And it's amazing. They don't have like scheduled kirtans, and when they have artis, there's not like a loudspeaker system and kirtan happening, but everyone's singing songs to him. All the time. And it's amazing. So that kind of natural, pure love that you see there gives you inspiration. But the Lord himself is just as manifested in any deity form. It's us that make the difference. Yeah? So we must purify ourselves. And through the process, then we can have more faith. And through more experience, we try more, we dedicate more, we have more experience that gives us more faith, and we continue trying. That's why in the process of devotional service, we have adau shraddha, right? First, we must have faith, willingness to even try the process of Krishna consciousness. And then, sadhu sangha, association with devotees, makes the faith stronger. By seeing other devotees practicing and getting results, you become more enlivened and more inspired to practice and get results for yourself. And like that, it goes back and forth, back and forth. Your results gives more faith to other devotees, and those devotees' results give more faith to yourself. Make sense? So this is how we can develop our faith in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada brings one more point out in this chapter. I mean, he brings so many, but in this relation, he says that for devotees, when they hear about these magnanimous, amazing forms of the Lord or activities of the Lord, as in Bhagavad Gita, his universal form, or the pastimes in other Puranas where he does amazing things, or the Brahmanas do amazing things, it gives them more love for the Lord. It simply makes them think, oh, how cool and wonderful Krishna is. But for the materialists, because they have the envious nature that brought us to this material world, they think it is mythology. They think this is wrong. This is just a story. This is, we have to understand what's the moral of the story, because the story itself is just a story. Right? This is because we have the envious nature. Within us, there's this materialistic nature that thinks that I want to enjoy separate from the Lord. And so therefore, if he has that power, how come I can't have that? I don't have that power. And so therefore, his power isn't real. It's like, I don't know if any of you have ever done some exercise and lifting weights. You lift 10 kilos, you're like, wow, so heavy. And then you hear about these people lifting 1,000 kilos, 500 kilos, and you're like, that's impossible. No, it's not possible. It's not real. Right? Because I can't. Right? So this mentality, the thinking that we want to be the greatest and we want to be the best and anyone who can do more is not real. It's not real. So this is this envious nature that we have to get over. And we can be on a lookout for when we're hearing the pastimes of the Lord and this materialistic mentality creeps in. You can stop yourself and think, hey, why am I thinking like this? Why aren't I more like the cobbler who becomes joyful when he hears that the Lord is pushing the elephant through the eye of the needle? Why am I like the Brahmana who becomes envious and angry? Yeah. And then it can become the impetus for you to purify yourself, to hear more pastimes and understand that the Lord is this wonderful. Yeah? So I thought today would also be nice if we talked about a few upcoming appearance days and devotees who are going to be, their anniversary or so on is coming up. So on Saturday we have two personalities, and one person is in relation to today's story, so I thought it would be nice to talk about him, and that is Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Also on Saturday is the disappearance day of Ramachandra Kaviraj. Yeah, but I thought we'd speak about Gopal Bhatta Goswami because of his relationship with Radharamanji. Yeah, so Gopal Bhatta Goswami was, of course, one of the 6 Goswamis we know. But his story is very interesting because he met Mahaprabhu when he was very young. So when Mahaprabhu was traveling through South India and he came to Srirangam, when he was there in the temple of Srirangam, he was dancing and chanting the Lord's name with such ecstasy that everyone became astonished. And one of the devotees who were there was a devotee named Venkatabhatta. So this devotee, seeing the Lord and how wonderful he looks, understood his great position and how amazing and astonishing he must be. And so he approached the Lord, and while the Lord was dancing, he took the dust from his lotus feet, and he invited the Lord back to his house to stay for a while. And so the Lord, of course, accepted and went to his house, and the young son of Venkatabhatta, his name was Gopal, so that was Gopal Bhatta. Yes, he was only around 5 years old at that time when Mahaprabhu came to stay in his house. And Mahaprabhu stayed the whole rainy season. In South India, rainy season is 4 months. And I was there during rainy season, and it really is non-stop rain. And you think about it, without cars, trains, and planes, getting around in that kind of rain is pretty much impossible. So it was very common at that time that during rainy season, people would stay in one place, either in a temple or in a sacred place, and perform, more austerity, more chanting, take the time to just focus on themselves. And so Mahaprabhu spent the 4 months of rainy season in Venkatabhatta's house. And every day, small Gopal, was able to eat the remnants of Mahaprabhu's prasadam. So you can imagine the great fortune of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, that at such a young age, he was eating Mahaprabhu's remnants and being able to associate with him and speak with him and serve him in whatever little ways Gopal could at that age. And so when it came time for Mahaprabhu to leave, Gopal pleaded with him, please stay. And it was, crying and crying. So Mahaprabhu stayed extra, I think almost a month he stayed. And he gave Gopal initiation at that age. And so Gopal at that age already wanted to go with Mahaprabhu back and travel with him. But he said, no, you're the only son. You should stay and take care of your parents. And when they're well taken care of, when they leave this world, then you can come and join me. So he stayed there, and he took the initiative and studied very hard, because he knew at some point he would be able to serve Mahaprabhu with his knowledge. And so he studied Pancharatra, he studied all the Vedic scriptures, and when his parents became elderly, he took care of them very nicely. And when they left this world, remembering Mahaprabhu's promise, he quickly traveled back to Vrindavan, and he associated with Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami. He studied there with them. And then when Mahaprabhu eventually left this world, Gopabhata Goswami was so sad that he didn't get to see Mahaprabhu and serve Mahaprabhu in his physical form again in this lifetime, that Mahaprabhu appeared to him in a dream and told him that if you want to see me, come to Nepal and have a bath in the Kaligandaki River. So the Kaligandaki River is very special because that's where all the shalagrams are, the Lord in the shalagram Shila form. So Gopabhata Goswami went there, and of course we know the story that he took his lota to take bath, his pot, and when he put it into water, 12 shalagrams jumped into the pot. And so he saw the shalagrams inside, and so he quickly put them back in the river, took water again to take bath, but again there was the same 12 shalagrams inside. And it says he did this like 5 times, some places says 3 times, but anyway he understood that these shalagrams want to come with him. So he took them with him back to Vrindavan, and everywhere he went he would have a bag, like a little bundle with these shalagram shilas, and he would worship them and put them back, and he would do parikram with this bundle of shalagram shilas. So he went back to Vrindavan and he continued his seva there. And one day, I think it was around Snanyatra time, one very wealthy merchant, Brahmin merchant, he came by and he gave to Gopabhata Goswami many ornaments and jewelry and clothes for deities, because all the other Goswamis had their deities. You know, Rupa Goswami had Govindaji, Sanatana Goswami had Madan Mohanji, right? So they had these beautiful deities and they were worshipping them and dressing them and doing so many wonderful festivals for them in their deity form. So Gopabhata Goswami began to feel a little bit, not envious, but he developed a desire to also worship his Lord in deity form. So when this merchant came and gave him this paraphernalia, he felt even more this desire, and he told the merchant, please give these things to one of my other Goswamis, because they have deities that they can use this jewelry, right? And the merchant said, no, you keep it, I want you to use it for your shalagrams. And so he was a little perplexed, but he accepted him. And not that night, but a little bit later, actually it was in the day before Nishima Chaturdasi, that he was thinking about the pastime of Nrsingadev, how Nrsingadev manifested due to the desire of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj saw the Lord in the pillar, and because of that, the Lord appeared from the pillar. So he was thinking about how wonderful it would be if the Lord manifested himself as a form because of my desire to worship him in the deity form. And so the next day when he woke up, he saw he only had 11 shilas, and one of the shilas had opened up into this beautiful Radharamanji form. And if you see the form, Radharamanji is only like this tall, but he's perfect. His eyes, even he has teeth. You can see in his smile, see small little teeth. He has fingernails. Normally when you carve deities, they're just empty gaps, but there's actually like nails, right? Everything is perfect because he's self-manifest. He's not carved. And so Gopabhata Goswami, of course, made a beautiful temple for him and began to worship him with great love and devotion. You go there to this day and it's amazing, the standard of worship. And this standard of worship has been kept so nicely because when Gopabhata Goswami was traveling in Nepal, right, Himalaya side, he was passing through Haridwar, and there was one Brahmana there who was so touched by how great a devotee Gopabhata Goswami was, that he asked Gopabhata Goswami, please take my son with you. Yeah, he will serve you in every way possible, and please train him and make him a devotee like yourself. And so Gopabhata Goswami, he said that your son is too young, he's too small. Let him stay with you, receive your love and care, and then when he's older, he can come. So when Gopabhata Goswami, after many years, relatively many years, he was taking bath in Yamuna, and he's coming back to the temple, and he sees this boy, he must have been 13, 14 years old, sitting there at the doorstep of his house. And so Gopabhata Goswami, when he saw the boy paid obeisances and says, my dear Goswamiji, you remember me? I was from Haridwar. My father sent me to serve you. And so Gopabhata Goswami, little surprised, but seeing it as the arrangement of the Lord, accepted the boy initiated him. He became, his name was Gopinath. And his two brothers also joined him later on. They also came with their families. And so that family, Gopinath's family, he initiated his brothers, and their descendants are the ones who are maintaining the worship now of Radharamanji. And so it's that family lineage, the Goswami family lineage, that continues on to this day and maintains the worship. And so father teaches son, son teaches his son, and like that, they're keeping the same standard of worship. So that's another deity that we can go to and see the love and care and real, how do you say, interaction between devotees and the Lord that is so real and pure, that can inspire us and give us more faith in our devotion to Nrsingadev, give us more faith and devotion to our Lord, and so that we can be more inspired to be better devotees and serve the Lord with more devotion, and that way go back to Godhead sooner. Yeah, so Gopabhata Goswami's life is very detailed, described in many books, and if you do a little bit of research, you can find so many more stories and pastimes, and this story in more detail as well. So you can take the time. You have Saturday is his appearance day, but you can take time up to then to already know about him a little bit more and hear about his pastimes and what he's left for us, a great fund of knowledge, because Gopabhata Goswami, born in a Sri Vaishnava lineage, he learned all the details of deity worship and samskaras and rituals, but at the same time he entered into the Vaishnava society, and so he was able to keep what rituals we do from the Sri Vaishnavas, at the same time make them more fitting for us who are desiring to go back to Goloka Vrindavan and not go to Vaikuntha, right? We want the other rasas with the Lord, not Shanta and Dasya. So in that way, Gopabhata Goswami has made for us so many different paratis or books in which how we should worship the Lord and how we do our samskaras, how we install the Lord, and so many other things, so we can learn from him as well. Yeah, so Srila Gopabhata Goswami ki jai. So I'll finish there. If there's any questions or comments, it would be wonderful. It was mainly stories today, so I don't think there'll be many. Yes, Prabhu.
According to the faith, what is said, what the devotees should have cultivate for the daily form of the Lord, how we can enhance our faith, because sometimes we even don't see, sometimes I see, especially in the morning when I bring out the prasadam from the lamp or something like that, the devotees are singing with closed eyes or kind of, it's because it's so foreign to us. It's so, in one sense, unnatural, how we can enter more maybe into the space of developing a living relationship with Lord in His deity form.
Very nice question, Prabhu. Thank you. So we have our sadhana, we have our, how would I say, rituals, so to speak, arti, we sing certain songs, we spend a certain amount of time in front of the Lord and like that, all because it is foreign to us. It's not something that we can naturally do out of our pure love. It's not something that we even want to do necessarily unless we had to, right? So this sadhana process, or this sadhana bhakti process that was given, established by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then made more, I'm going to say practical, but easy for us by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, is there exactly for that reason, because it is foreign to us. It is something that we have to become used to, or have to make it ours by practice. And so in the beginning, it may become something a little bit ritualistic. It may become something that we do simply day in, day out because we're supposed to, or because everybody else does. But exactly the question Prabhu is posing is how to make it ours, or how to make it something that we're doing out of relationship with the Lord, is by understanding that the Lord is a person. And by serving the Lord in any way we can in His deity form, it makes it much easier. If you're involved in deity worship, you understand that the Lord wakes up, He has to get ready, He eats, He has to clean, he has to wash his hands, everything you do just like you would do for a child, just like you would do for someone you love. And so through interaction with the Lord in that way, through deity worship in that way, then you start understanding that the Lord is a person. He is not just a statue, just not a deity. You're worshiping as a person because he is a person. And so in the beginning you worship him just, focusing on what mantras you're supposed to chant and what things you're supposed to do, right? And what decoration you're supposed to put. Because it's Sunday, it's supposed to be this. Because it's Monday, it's supposed to be that. Because it's this festival, we're doing this. And you're not really doing it because he wants it, but because you were told to, or because you heard that you're supposed to. But eventually, through practice and through doing it, you start developing a desire to please him and dressing him in a way that he wants to be pleased, or that he'll be the most beautiful. Not because you were told to, right? Or not because someone will see and praise you, oh, look how beautifully you dress the Lord. But because you want to please him, you want him to be happy. So through practice, this devotional service process is so perfect that it will take us there anyway. But that missing point is you have to do it with sincerity. So you come to Mangalarti and you're standing in front of the Lord, singing for him. But why are you doing that? Are you doing it with feeling? Or are you just doing it because you're supposed to? In the beginning, just showing up is good enough. I mean, this is difficult enough for me, right? Just showing up is hard enough. But then take it one more step, and do it one more step, and do it with feeling, and do it because you want to see the Lord, and because you should start every day seeing the Lord. It's like when you wake up, at least if you're married, or if you're a daughter or a son of someone, the first thing you want to do is say, good morning, how are you today? Have some interaction with those people you love. So this is the person you're supposed to love the most. So first thing in the morning, you should have an interaction with him and talk to him and see how he's doing and how you are. And you can tell him, oh, my night was like this, I had a bad dream. And eventually it becomes more personal. It's not so impersonal anymore. It's not just something you do. So this process is perfect. And if you do it with feeling, it'll take you there. It'll take you to that point of personal relationship with the Lord. But you must do it with feeling and with the desire to get to that goal. As long as you're doing it with the desire to eventually have a relationship with the Lord, then the process will take you there. But yeah, putting effort into taking it that one step further and doing it a little bit better with feeling, with consciousness, helps. And yeah, not every day of the week it will be, maybe not even every day of the month will be. But if one day a month you can come to Mangalarti and be actually happy to see the Lord first thing, then eventually, maybe after a year or so, you will feel, oh, today I didn't see the Lord in the morning and my day was not good. So tomorrow I have to go and see the Lord first thing in the morning, and then I'll be happy the whole day. So we gradually will get there. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu, for the question. We'll finish there. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi.